another retirement for Will Power. He's had, as we said, a couple of wins this season. This is just, however, just the second time he's failed to finish. With a bad day in Houston, it all went wrong from there after starting from the pole. And then in Edmonton a couple of races ago, he was out there after also starting from the pole. So it was his third pole of the season. The first time was a charm. He won the race in Las Vegas from the pole. The other 2 times he started from the pole, it all went wrong. It's gone wrong again today as well. So look at Oriel Survey though, with just under half an hour now to go. It's Sebastian Bourd who leads from Graham Rahal, Dan Clark and Oriel Survey. There is Dan Clark, and they're telling him on the radio, nice and smooth, good job, keep the focus. That's what they're saying to Dan Clark on the radio. Running in a very accomplished third place is Dan Clark this afternoon. Started only 8th position on the grid.
Jan.
As we're on board again with Bruno Junqueira. So we've got Sebastian Bourd, Graham Rahal, separated by about 5 seconds right now. Dan Clark about another 3 seconds or so behind in third place. Oriel Survey less than a second behind Dan Clark in 4th. Then about a 3-second gap to Alex Tagliani in 5th. Then about 11 seconds back to Neil Gianni in 6th. Then the second of the PKV cars, Tristan Gomondi, holding off Jan Halen. And then Justin Wilson and Bruno Junqueira. And there is the erstwhile 5th place car of Alex Tagliani. Another scheduled pit stop for the number 8 R-Sport car. There it goes. And again, looks like pretty much a trouble-free stop there. Tom Howard and the boys there. Wrecking ball, they call Tom Howard there. Nothing to do with his figure, of course. He's a great character, is Tom, and he works extremely hard. Been around this sport for a long time. There is Neil Gianni also making a stop for the PKV Racing team, and he pits out of 6th position. Good middle part of the season has Neil Gianni. 3 times out of the last 5 races he's been on the podium at the end of the day. This weekend he started off really well. He was 3rd quickest on Friday in qualifying. Quite matched that pace on Saturday, so started down the order a little bit in 7th. One of several drivers unable to improve in the 2nd round of qualifying, but nobody really has been able to touch this man. It's Sebastian Bourd. Incredible record he has set for himself in this championship. Bourd, this is his 69th Champ Car start. He's already won 27 of them, and as we said earlier on, his 29th pole came this weekend. And he's finally going to get that opportunity to go to Formula 1. But James, how difficult is it going to be for Sebastian Bourd to go from a top-line operation like Newman Haas Lanigan Racing? Certainly there's no disrespect to Scuderia Toro Rosso. I think there's no doubt they certainly don't have front-running equipment, at least not yet in Formula 1. Is that going to be difficult for Sebastian?
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, that's a very interesting point, and that's a very tough call for a driver to make. I mean, he is leaving a place where he is the man to beat. You know, he's just so dominant in this series. He's got such a good operation with Newman Haas Lanigan, and he's going to, you know, a team that's known as a midfielder at best, sort of a back-end, you know, grid at Formula 1. But that was always his dream, to go to Formula 1. He's now being able to realize that, so you cannot fault him, and he might just be able to make good of it one day.
So there is Sebastian Bourd, the McDonald's machine. And as James said, it's a lifetime ambition for him to race in Formula 1. He's finally going to get that chance last year. He's had some excellent tests in Formula 1 over the past 9 months or so. And that is something he desperately wants to do. And as he says, you know, he's settled in his life now. He's got a wife and a child. And, you know, if there's a time to move back to Europe, he's very comfortable here living in the St. Petersburg area in Florida. But if there is a time to sort of move on with your life and go back to your roots, maybe this is the opportunity for Sebastian Bourd. So he's very excited about that move to Formula 1. And let's not forget, it's an Adrian Newey designed car that he is going to be driving in Formula 1. And while, yes, this year there might be some doubts about its competitiveness, who knows what might happen down the road. But I think, you know, there's no doubt his focus is still very much on the Champ Car World Series. He thoroughly enjoys racing over here. Of course, it's easy to enjoy it when you're winning. But I think all the drivers just enjoy the whole atmosphere in Champ Car World Series. And even, yes, it might be true that he's making everybody else look fairly average, certainly this afternoon, as there is his teammate in 2nd place. But still a lot of satisfaction to be gained from driving these race cars.
No, absolutely. This is still a fantastic machine as we're out on board with Graham Rahal here. But, you know, heading to Formula 1, it's going to be tough for him. I mean, he is a winner. He is one of those guys who really is not happy unless he's winning. And ultimately, when you get into Formula 1, the only guy you're really competing against is your teammate, because the disparity between teams sometimes is just so massive. So But like you say, Adrian Newey designing that car next year, it can potentially be a very competitive ride. And one thing you cannot doubt and cannot ignore is the commitment Red Bull has to their program and to being successful.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And talking about beating your teammate, here is the teammate to Sebastian Bourd. It is Graham Rahal there, the Medizone car number 2, Newman Haas Lanigan Racing, running in 2nd place. And Bourd, we hear he's going to be on pit lane at the end of this lap. There is Robert Dornbos making a pit stop, and clearly a problem there on the right front corner of his car. And we certainly shouldn't be surprised with that as a result of his impact earlier on with his teammate Dan Clark. So this is going to be a lengthy pit stop for Robert Dornbos. And I was talking about the fact that we're expecting Bourd onto pit lane this time around. His last lap was a new fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 45.10, as Sebastian Bourd now is streaking towards the pit lane, and probably what will be his final pit stop of the day. It's Catherine Legg there in that newly liveried car of Dale Coyne Racing. She's just had a really difficult weekend, just not at all happy with that race car. She's just been going off the pace all weekend, and poor old Catherine, she's really having a hard time. His confidence is being completely sapped away. She's had a couple of lengthy pit stops this afternoon. She's shown us 6 laps down, and her last lap time was a 1 minute 50.8, and that's several seconds slower than the rest of the field. But trust me, Catherine is a lot better than she looked this afternoon. Here is Graham Rahal bringing the number 2 car onto pit lane. I didn't see Sebastian Bourd come down into the pit lane. He's actually gone. He has gone past to do one more lap, so we were expecting Sebastian onto the pit lane this time. Instead, it's the second of the Newman Haas Lanigan cars that does pull into his pit for routine service. This is Timmy Coffeen here on the left front there. He'll be waiting for the last of the fuel to go in. You can see him standing guard over that left front tire. There is the signal to go, and there resumes Graham Rahal, who came in 2nd place. There behind him is Oriol Servia. Again, look how much Oriol has closed in the gap there. And there's now, as you can see, the gap, 3 or 4 seconds at most between those 2 cars, and it started at pretty much opposite ends of the grid.
And that could very well get Oriol ahead of Dan Clark, because don't forget, Dan was in 3rd before these pit stops started, currently running 2nd as he was able to do an extra lap with Sebastian Bourd.
But Dan Clark has just had his best lap of the race as he came across the line that time. That's exactly what Dan needs to do, a 1:45.3 for Dan Clark. Good work by Dan.
But Oriol's in lap was the 2nd fastest lap of the race. So Gomendy now also in pit lane. He came in from 6th position. And as Paul Tracy now, the 2nd of the Forsyth Championship Racing cars, coming in for his next pit stop.
Yeah, so it's all action down there on pit lane at the moment. We're expecting Justin Wilson in as well for his final pit stop of the day. There is PT's guys going to work, Steve Moore and the crew there on car number 3. The tyres are changed, the last of the fuel goes in, and away goes PT. It's certainly going to be it's been a really disappointing day for Paul Tracy, disappointing weekend. You can see there the McDonald's team laid out for Sebastian Bourd, and in the background that was the Minardi Team USA guys still working on car number 14 of Robert Dornbos. Cameron Steele is in the Newman Haas Racing in Lanigan pit. Sebastian Bourd brings this McDonald's car onto pit lane.
You can hear right there Kenny Seawick telling him 1 turn of front wing. You remember the Newman Haas Lanigan team got their first ever win here at Road America with Mario Andretti. So definitely looking for that. You can see the adjustment in the wing. I can also update you as Sebastian is away that Robert Dornbos is on pit road changing an upper wishbone on the front right. That is from contact he had earlier with Dan Clark that we all saw.
Thank you, Cameron Steele. So changing the upper wishbone on car number 14 of Robert Dornbos. And the championship contenders all struggling this weekend, aside from this man, Sebastian Bourd. He's way out in front. Looks like he may well gain maximum points. He's already set the fastest lap of the race.
And you just caught as Justin Wilson dives into the pits. Sebastian Bourd was on his Cosworth power to pass on that outlap, trying to get up to speed as quickly as possible.
He's got a whole 75 seconds worth left as Sebastian Bourd. There is an on-board shot there from the fueler for car number 9. That is Shane Johnson there, the R-Sport team. A good stop there once again for the CCW machine of Justin Wilson. And he resumes. I think he was in 6th place when he came in. Certainly fallen back several positions, but it's been a pretty good fight back by Justin Wilson after a very difficult beginning to the race. That flash of the green and white car in the foreground was Jan Halen. He has made, I believe, his final pit stop of the day. Yes, he was in last time around, so Jan Halen will resume ahead of Justin Wilson. I think Justin will be around about 10th position when everybody else gets back up to speed. So let's Let's reset the order for one more time. Dan Clark, I believe, is on pit lane right now. Is he? Yes, he comes in. Here is Dan Clark. So he briefly took over the race lead and now comes in for his final service of the afternoon.
And even the chief engineer, Will Phillips, was out there helping out his pit stop, just directing Dan in, and he's away.
Yeah, Finch Kramer there on the radio to Dan Clark, whose service seems to be completed. There goes Sebastian Bourd in the forefront of the screen, out of the picture, in the lead of the race once more. Dan Clark brings that car back onto the track, still in second place. Has he managed to squeak ahead of Graham Rahal, James Hinchcliffe?
He did. As he was pulling out of the pits, our timing screen flashed that Graham had just crossed the start-finish line, so Graham will be closing at a very quick rate. Again, Graham is on hot tires. Dan just coming out of the pits on cold tires. We've already seen them go at it once this race. Who knows?
And again, great strategy from Minardi Team USA, bringing their guy in early, and then great driving by Dan Clark to very fast in-lap. Can he maintain second place? So there is Sebastian Bourd. He's down already now into the hurry down section of the track, through turn 7 there, the right-hander downhill, quite steeply down here. Heavy braking again down to one of the slower corners on the track. There is a gap back to the second place car of Dan Clark, and there behind him is Graham Rahal. So brilliant work by those guys of Minardi Team USA, and particularly Dan Clark. He did exactly what he had to do, which was a superbly fast in-lap, and it was only, what, a couple of tenths slower than the fastest lap of the race set by a runaway leader, Sebastian Bourd.
This has been, I think, one of the best driven races I've seen Dan Clark do in a very long time, possibly ever in the Champ Car World Series. He's doing such a phenomenal job. He's reminding me of his drive in San Jose last year, which of course unfortunately ended with a gearbox failure for Dan, but he is doing a great job. And how many times have we seen Minardi Team USA just make great strategy calls and get their drivers up on the podium? They are just so good at what they do. A great group of engineers up on that stand making brilliant calls, and that's what it takes to be competitive week in and week out.
He does. We talk a lot about Michael Cannon, who's a race engineer for the car number 14 of Robert Dornbos, but Will Phillips, he's a very accomplished race engineer as well, and once again he's a calming influence on his driver. Is Will Phillips, Englishman, vastly experienced, worked for several different teams over the years, and he knows exactly how to get the best out of both his car and his driver. Dan Clark, his previous best result with a third place finish last year in Denver. We said earlier on he had the pole here at Elkhart-Lake's Road America circuit 1 year ago, finished 6th on that occasion 1 year ago, so it was certainly a good strong drive there, and he's another of the guys that just loves coming to this racetrack.
He certainly does. You know, he got that pole under tricky circumstances, a drying racetrack, decided to go out on slicks when everyone else had been on wets, but pulled it off great. And please say, best result of third so far. He had 2 second-place finishes on the cards last year. One, of course, San Jose ended in mechanical failure, the other being a very controversial move in Cleveland, the last lap pass on Mario Dominguez that went awry and ended up taking them both out of the race. So this will be a great boost for Dan Clark. He's really not had the pace all season that people were expecting. He ended last season quite strong, and they were expecting him to kind of come out of the gates as one of the returning drivers and impress, and he just struggled, having missed all the preseason testing. But now he's certainly showing that he can get the job done.
I think that's the key. You know, his deal for this year was done only 1 week before the first race of the season in Las Vegas. So as you said, James, he missed all of the preseason testing, so he was really behind the 8 ball from the start. And as competitive as this series is, that's a big handicap going into a season. So it's now Dan Clark in second place, potentially looking towards his best ever finish in the Champ Car World Series. And maybe that new black helmet, the Darth Vader helmet, is working out for Dan Clark. And Graham Rahal there, his crew is telling him on the radio, run hard, Graham, they're telling him. You think he might be doing something different than that, James?
I don't think that's usually how it works, Jeremy. No, I mean, to be honest, as a driver, it's sometimes quite annoying when an engineer or a crew chief comes on and says, drive faster. What do you think I'm doing? You don't pay me to drive slowly. But either way, Graham Rahal is doing as he's told, setting very competitive lap times. The fastest man on the track that last circuit around by a pretty significant margin. So he is, the fire has been lit, I guess you could say, and he is really putting the hammer down.
Yes, he has responded. 1:45.998 for Graham Rahal in third place. Let's recap again. The fastest lap of the race so far set by Sebastian Bourd on lap 39, a 1:45.100. Dan Clark, the amazing Dan Clark, speedy Dan Clark this weekend, not desperate Dan or dangerous Dan or anything else. It's been speedy Dan Clark this afternoon, a 1:45.355. actually has just been eclipsed by Oriol Servia, who's done a 145, or recently, no, it's actually a little earlier on by Oriol Servia, 145.2. So Dan Clark at 145.3, and then Graham Rail, the fourth fastest.